In this video, I'm going to begin modeling this character's head by introducing a polygon cube, and then over in the attributes in the channel box, I've changed the subdivision width, height, and depth to 2. And then I'm going to go into my vertexes and I'm going to start to round it off in its various orthographic views, and I'll hit 3 as I'm going back and forth to rough out the basics of the face. So now with the cube in this shape, I'm going to add a couple of edges and then beginning a little more of the modeling process. So I'll get my edge loop tool and I'll click and put an edge here, and then I'm going to put one down here, and this will represent pretty much where the mouth will be, and that will be the eyes. I'm going to adjust those in the side view just to make sure they kind of line up the way I want with the drawing. And now I'm going to cut off the left-hand side because we're going to be using an instance to continue. So going to my front view, I'll right-click and choose face, and selecting the faces on the left-hand side, I'll delete. Going back to my object mode, I'm going to go to Edit, Duplicate Special Attributes, and I'm going to set for Instance, and mine is on the x-axis, so I'll put -1 for scale in the x-axis box and hit apply. So now whatever we do on the right-hand side will be reflected on the left. Now I'm going to go into my perspective view and I'm going to add the neck section. I'll select face and I'll select the faces that I want to extrude, and I'm going to click on my extrude button and then I'll center it. And I'll start to introduce this. And again, I'll refer back to my template for position and scale. So I'll quickly go in and do that. And I'm going back from 1 and 3 on my keyboard to see how closely my model is becoming. Now, the one thing I want to do is make sure that I've gotten rid of the poly faces at the bottom that I don't need down here, so that my neck is open to add to the body later on. So I'll hit 1 on the keyboard and I'll return my perspective view, and I'll right click and choose face, and I'll just get rid of these 2 faces. And I also want to get rid of what I have on the inside as well. So if I were to hit 3 on the keyboard now, you can see the neck is pretty much proportional to the template. Now I'm going to add 2 more edges to start defining where the eye socket's going to be on the front of the face. I'll get my edge loop tool and using my reference, and I'll put one here, and I can adjust these afterwards. That looks pretty good. I might move this up a little, and I'll just go to edge. I'll give it a double click. I'll just pull that up a little bit. So if we go to perspective view, we're looking at something like this. So now I'm going to develop the eye socket. Now I know that it has to taper in the middle, so I'll go in and I'll just adjust that a bit. And now I'll return my perspective view, and I'll right click and I'll choose face. I'm going to select this face and this face, and I'm going to hit my extrude button. I'll center it. I'll click on the scale tool and I'll start to pull that in. You can see we're starting to put rough in that eye socket where the eyeball will eventually be. I'll just start to play with this a little bit, moving it, scaling it, and I can do it with the face, or I can do it with the vertexes. So if I hit 3 on the keyboard, you can see that we're starting to develop that socket. Now I'm going to hit 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to start to adjust where the eye would have more of a contour over here, and I'll pull that back, and I can see that I need to pull these back as well, so I'll do that here. We're just kind of putting that socket in where it would be physically, gradually. Going back from 1 and 3 on the keyboard. You can see we're starting to get that roughed in. I'll hit 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to grab this and I'll pull it in a bit. And I'll hit 1 on the keyboard, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save that. And now we'll go in and we'll rough in where the mouth is going to be. Now I'll introduce the area for the face. Holding it on my right mouse, I'll go to face. I'll select these faces. Using the extrude tool, I'll center it. Getting the scale tool, I'll pull it in. Now we're going to have to get rid of this face and this face. And we want to move our vertexes back to the center here. Now I'll adjust the vertexes here to kind of define where the mouth shape will most likely be. The nose is going to be up in this area. This is all subject to the template that you're working with as well, but there's a way to rough them in at first. I'm going to continue to develop the mouth, and I'll do so by selecting the faces here and here. And again, I'll introduce the extrude tool, center, and again, we don't want these faces. And then I'll get my vertexes and put them back together again. So it's pretty subjective at this point, because now, once we've kind of introduced these basics, you can start to refine it a little bit closer to your actual art. So you can see now we're starting to kind of flesh this out a bit. And this allows me to go in now and I can introduce more edges down in this area here to add more refinement. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to start to model this in 3D space by adjusting these vertexes. When we come back, we'll add the nose. With some of the mouth and the eye roughed in, I'll now introduce the structure for the nose. And I'll do that by selecting face, and I'll select this one and this one. And I'll click on my extrude tool. I'll center it, clicking and dragging to the left. And then I'll start to introduce some depth. Now before I go any further, I'm going to get rid of these faces on the inside. So I'll select these two. I'll delete these, and then I'll take my vertexes, center those. Now I'll begin to flesh out the nose, since we've got the geometry roughly introduced. And again, once I rough this in, I'll start referencing my template. And I'll go back from 1 and 3 as I do this. Now that I've got it roughed in, I'll go back now and spend a good amount of time making it similar to the template. So in addition to playing with the vertex relationship to the template, I've also introduced the nostril here. And the next level would be starting to refine this even more using our Edge Loop tool.